Hey everybody, thank you for joining us on the FareCompare weekly podcast. Actually, the video podcast, episode number 16. Again, thanks for watching. We're going to talk a little bit about some news topics that we've seen today. One on the term that I hadn't actually heard of until this. I saw an article earlier this morning called last class. So we'll talk a little bit about that. There's some changes in the airline industry. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. Some good news on the on-time airline statistics on that front. So we'll talk a bit about that, and then we'll take, as time permits, some questions for customers. So joining me today on the podcast is our editor from the site at FareCompare.com, Ann McDermott. Hey, Ann.
Hey, Rick. Now, this Business Insider story on last class, I think the whole point is they're trying to make it sound derogatory, but you don't think it's derogatory, do you?
No, I mean, well, last class, back of the bus. There's a plane, right? You pay a price for an airline ticket seat, whether you sit next to the lavatory in the back or sit up front. You may or may not have paid more. A lot of people don't really care. They just want to pay the least for their ticket, and whether or not they get frills. And this is referring to recently in the last couple of years, Delta trying to compete with Spirit and now Frontier Airlines on the ultra low cost front, and American Airlines announcing they're going to do that as well, where you're sort of guaranteed to sit in the back, probably a middle seat. No miles or points. Not sure that's a good thing that much anymore if you only fly once or twice a year. I'm not sure how many, if your points are actually worth, or miles are worth it. So that kind of seat where it's cheaper, and here's sort of the problem that these huge incumbent airlines have. Remember, 4 airlines have 80% of traffic. Is a person's going out to shop. They need to go from, let's say, where I'm at today in Dallas to New York. I need to go tomorrow or the next day. Ticket prices are $1,100 or $1,200 on a nonstop. That same ticket is about $450 on Spirit Airlines nonstop. Where am I going to fly? Am I going to pay the $1,200 just so I can sit a little bit closer to the front, or and get some peanuts? Probably not, and that's why they're adding these sections, and they're going to match those prices. So you will see $400 prices, but you'll be guaranteed to be sitting in the back in so-called last class. That seems okay with me. If my goal is to get there as cheaply as possible. I had somebody contact me this morning saying, hey, I have a last-minute emergency. Prices are $1,300. What should I do? This is exactly what this is trying to address.
I don't particularly want to sit next to the lavatory. I too would like to sit up the front of the plane, but if it's going to save me $100 or more, I really don't care where I sit.
I think everybody has exactly that formula, if it's going to be. And by the way, to not sit back in the back, many times you're a fee if you're not an elite traveler, or you have to be very vigilant and a hobbyist to hop on exactly at 23 hours and 59 minutes and 59 seconds to get the better seats that are released. So, if you're not an airline hobbyist and doing these things, then many times you do get stuck back there in the back.
Well, you wrote a column about this, kind of about this, just for ABC this week. And what's interesting is so many of the airlines are turning, some of the discounters are sort of, expanding their first class offerings, while legacy carriers, as you've pointed out just now, the American and Delta, I guess it is, are getting down to basic fares.
Yeah, and that's coming to United. And on the flip side, United is now offering snacks where nobody was offering snacks anymore. So it's sort of cats love dogs. I don't know what's up anymore. It's like legacy airlines, at least have 4 seats that are ultra low cost airlines, and ultra low cost airlines at least have 5 seats that are legacy airlines. And so it's hard for me to tell anymore what's going on. And I watch this every day, and I think part of this is the fact that airlines now have some extra money in their pockets, and the marketing folks are saying, well, how can we make some incremental revenue? The bean counters are doing that, and part of this is, hey, I have to compete with these other guys. On the flip side, let me try something and see if I can get some more customers by offering, I think on United in the morning, a Stroop waffle. You'll have to check that out in Google. I had to actually look for what a Stroop waffle was as well.
Well, do you think airlines are trying to become all things to all people?
Yeah, well, I have to. I think what they're trying to do is make money on, per square inch on their aircraft, and
Yeah.
if that being everything to all people makes them money, I think absolutely that's true. I mean, there's a story with a congressperson that, has put a bill in that says that you can't, charge for going to the restroom on an aircraft. Well, this is not something I expect to happen anytime soon in the U.S. And clearly, this congressperson, because I'm not saying their name, I'm not giving them PR value that they want by firing this bill off. It has absolutely zero chance of moving anywhere. But again, I think airlines' job and their investors expect it is to make as much money on every square inch of aircraft. And right now, airlines are swimming in extra profits. And with those extra profits, we should be seeing newer aircraft. We are. We should be seeing some new ideas like Stroop waffles on United, and we are. So I don't think this is unusual. They do have marketing folks there that want to either steal traffic or get somebody to take an extra trip that they wouldn't want to take. So this is something that all the airlines are conscientious of.
I feel at this point that I must explain Stroop Waffle. It's one of the new free snack offerings on United. I mean, this is something to get excited about. Free snacks. When was the last time you saw that? Well, I will say Southwest and JetBlue are pretty darn good with their free snacks, but the big boys are not. And United starting, I believe it's in March, so we're going to have to wait till then.
I will have to. I'm waiting with bated breath to gnaw a bite out of a Stroop waffle.
Well, a Stroop waffle.
I may just go on Amazon and see if I can order one online.
It's described by United as a Dutch caramel-filled waffle that pairs perfectly with coffee or tea. It's like a sort of fancy-looking waffle-like cookie, and they are they're also offering savory snacks, and you have a couple of choices on this one for your savory fans out there. An Asian-style snack mix of rice crackers, sesame sticks, and wasabi peas, or a zesty ranch mix of mini pretzel sticks, Cajun corn sticks, and ranch soy nuts. I'll tell you, I'll take it. It sounds great. It's free.
Yeah, I guess I'll give it a shot. I'll give anything a shot. I've had some things on some airlines in Asia and Eastern Russia that I really didn't even want to take a bite of. So we'll have to leave it there in some cases. I'll try the Stroop waffle here soon.
You got to broaden your palate, Rick.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about some of these airline industry changes, with all these seat changes and whatnot. It also is some interesting new news on the on-time arrival front, right? Mm-hmm. As you might expect, it's getting better. So what's the reason for that? Is that because we have an amazing new $20 billion air traffic control system? The answer is we paid for it, but we don't have it. So it must be the fact that we have 12% fewer flights than we used to, and maybe Mother Nature has been pretty good in some situations more recently. So that's good news. Hey, the fact that the other thing, too, is that airlines really like to do a sneaky little thing, which is pad their schedules out with extra time, for example, so they do make those arrival statistics work out. So it's hard to tell what the numbers are really, but anytime we see that trend where we've got more people making it to their destination in a timely fashion, that's a good thing.
Well, as far as that padding goes, haven't you noticed more and more of that? I mean, one of these days I expect to look up at a board and see Houston to Dallas, flight time, 12 hours, just to make sure.
Yeah, I read an article a while back, I don't even know how long ago, Scott McCartney at the Wall Street Journal, mm-hmm. who evidently had an actual flight schedule, an old OAG book, that had the flight schedules from the 90s from, nonstop LA to New York and the current flight schedules. And amazingly, somehow over a 20-year period, it took another 30 to 40 minutes to get from New York to LA nonstop. So you can see what's happening there.
Clearly the plane slowed down since then,
Yeah, one would have expected, that 500-mile-an-hour aircraft to stay at least at 500 miles an hour, right? So those winglets must be slowing it down, those fuel-efficient winglets that they've added in the last 20 years. So anyway, airlines are, it's important, right? The government monitors these stats. Those stats end up in articles written by the media, and so if you
Yes.
can sort of sneak your way around those stats, you're going to do that.
Well, let's name a few names for the on-time airlines in
Sure.
North America. So this is U.S. and Canada. The best ones were WestJet. That's a Canadian discounter.
low-cost airline, yeah. Delta.
Delta did very good.
Yeah, they've been doing that recently, right? And they've soared past the other two legacy airlines, United, American, in that particular category. So, good on Delta for that. In fact, they've even talked about offering up some sort of thing if we're late or whatnot, our bags are late, and they've been talking about those kind of products that are out there mainly because their statistics are so good.
And Delta is followed by Virgin America, Alaska, and JetBlue. And the ones that did the worst, I'll let you do this, Rick.
Well, I was a little bit surprised about this, but Allegiant sort of leads the pack there. Now, Allegiant only flies certain days of the week. They are using older aircraft that could be part of it. You also have Frontier and Spirit. Again, these airlines that only have a handful of schedules in some cities, it's a little bit surprising that they have difficult on-time records. Some of them are flying to some cities during peak times, for example. That could be that. And then you have Air Canada and United sort of dragging up the pack. By the way, those two are partners. And so it's a bit surprising that, again, we don't see American sort of in the middle of the pack with United drawing up the rear and Delta up in the front when you look at the legacy airlines. Also in this list is not Southwest Airlines, which also is in the middle of the pack as well.
Mm-hmm. And if you are a global traveler, good ones, very good records are had by Iberia.
ANA, Japan,
Qatar, Norwegian.
We've had this
Norwegian
thing about
Air.
Qatar and Qatar, so we'll say both versions.
I'll say Qatar.
And then we have Norwegian Air. And then Japan Airlines as well. So that's on the good side. On the bad side, one might expect El Al being on the worst there, Air India, Pakistan International, Asiana, and Ethiopian dragging up the rear.
Yeah. But for on-time airports, I kind of like this because this is of the world, the best ones of the world. There are two U.S. airports that might surprise you. Number one is Tokyo, followed by Istanbul, and then the two U.S. airports, Detroit and Minneapolis, followed by.
I was a little bit surprised by that because those are both either current or former hubs of the new Delta with the Northwest. With Delta having good stats, but a couple of their airports having bad stats, which means some of their other airports like JFK and Salt Lake must have really, and Atlanta must have really, really good stats to wipe those out.
I do like the Detroit airport. It's really nice. I
agree with you too. I think it's one of the better ones, absolutely. And then on the worst side, we have Jakarta in Indonesia, Beijing, Hong Kong, Paris, and Seoul. And I've experienced all those cities and never been on time.
And this is, in case you're wondering, it's Paris de Gaulle.
Yeah, Charles de Gaulle, and then Incheon and Seoul. So, again, when you look at these things, if you fly a lot like I do, you're sort of at the whim of some of these things, but at least we know what they are as part of this. So, again, I think that sort of covers the news that we had planned on talking about in the podcast. I think it's time for at least one or two questions from some people that have written in.
Okay, I think you'll like this one. This is from Nicole in Chicago. And she says, "Hi, Rick. I enjoy
And by the way,
your..."
Ann, this is we can also say that I have not seen these questions ahead of time, so we're going to do these on the fly as we always do during the podcast.
She says, "I enjoy seeing your podcast. We like Nicole from Chicago already." Anyway.
Yes, she's definitely on the good list here.
She says, "I've got a question for you. If your travel dates are not flexible," and she's talking about spring break, she's not flexible.
I'm in that same boat with you, Nicole, right now. My wife is asking me to sort out spring break as we speak.
Well, first you've got to sort out Nicole. She says, "Should you book them prior to 3 months out, or will those flights come down in price?" And she says, "We are traveling Chicago to Orlando, departing March 23rd, returning March 27th. She says the travel dates are not flexible. She also points out that the rates are very high at this point. And she's concerned about waiting, though, because, you know, she's just not flexible on those dates. She's talking about 5 people, 3 of them children. So she would like to depart and return in the morning. She would like a nonstop flight, and at this time the cost is running around $370. I assume that's round trip. So what should she do? Should she buy or should she wait?
So a couple things. Sorry about looking away from the camera. I was trying to see what day of the week March 23rd was. That apparently is a Wednesday, and the 27th is a Sunday. So a couple different things. If Nicole, if you have to go specifically on those days, at 370, let me first explain. The airlines know when everybody's spring break is, so they know every spring break in the Chicago school district. They know, and typically they automatically raise prices for the Saturday and Sunday both, bracketing that week on both sides. So, you know, it's really good idea to leave on the 23rd. In fact, if she was to look for a ticket from Sunday to Sunday, which includes one of her dates, it's probably more like $550 or $600 for that nonstop. So she's done the first thing right, which is pick that Wednesday departing. Then coming back on Sunday, so like a Tuesday, Saturday, I was just looking at the prices right now. They're a little bit cheaper, for example. So if she could just switch her dates by one day, she could already save. It is a little bit early to buy that ticket. I don't expect that ticket to go over $400, and I do expect it to go lower into the 300s, but I don't expect it to crack below under $300 on any of the days. But some of the days, it's going to be over $500 or $600 to fly nonstop into Orlando. So I would wait a little bit. We're sitting here in mid-December. I wouldn't buy my ticket any later than the first couple weeks in January. And I would try that Tuesday, Saturday. If you could just switch it a little bit, it looks like you'd save at least, looks like about 10 to 15% if you tried those days. And if you wait a couple more weeks and actually look in early January, you'll see that price point drop slightly.
And if you multiply that 10 to 15% by 5, well, I don't know what it is, but it's a whole lot of money.
Well, this is exactly what I'm doing at the moment. I just, my wife asked me, my daughter wants to go to Disney. We're sort of debating whether or not it's Disney World or Disneyland, and you know which airport, and so at the moment, again, I'm waiting till early January to buy those tickets nonstop. So, and it looks like we're going to do sort of a Tuesday, Saturday type itinerary to save some money there. So, I think I'm in the same boat as Nicole, and we're going to be, beavering away in early January, making sure we get those tickets purchased.
I have a question. I like this tip that you give about only bringing 1 or 2 credit cards when you, if you travel abroad, as we did. We went to Europe earlier this year. And so what I did was I followed your directions, took the credit cards, put them in a Ziploc bag, and hid them. What you failed to explain, Rick, is that you're supposed to remember where you hid them. When we returned, let's just say that
the dog ate my credit cards.
No, the dog couldn't find them either. However, earlier this week, as I was pouring this, the last dregs of this cereal, breakfast cereal that I don't care for, finally got rid of it, and I was about to throw the box away, and I thought, what the heck is this? Oh, I found my credit cards. Just
now that's a very sneaky hiding place right there.
Yeah. Well, now you can't use it because I've just told everybody about this great spot. But
here's what I would do: take and encrypt where you put it, and put it in the cloud, and then you can decrypt it with a password that you'll forget.
Oh, you're so techy.
So, there you go. Or what we could do is we could put an RFID sensor on there that only hooks up to something in your wallet. These are all very expensive options. So, telling a friend where your stuff is actually good. And I'll have to note too that we do this all the time. I know a lot of people have, many people have 5 or 6 different credit cards. They have store credit cards. Leave those at home when you go travel, especially when you're traveling to Europe and places like that, where a lot of these landmarks have had issues with pickpockets and whatnot.
We are proud to say that we had our pockets picked, and well, my spouse did, pockets picked in Paris. Thanks
It
for the
happens.
rain.
It happens quite a lot. So you just have to be aware of that and be aware of your surroundings. The best part of actually doing Paris after you've seen all the landmarks is to sample sort of the non-crowded areas, and that's where knowing where to sit and have a nice glass of wine and do a little people watching in certain places certainly makes sense. And you can come and read about that stuff at FareCompare on our blogs. You can also check out some of this information in our new app, Adventurous, that's out on the App Store and also on Google Play, so be sure and download that. Just type in faircompare.com/app on your phone and we'll take you right there. So also you can catch this video podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and share it with your friends and ask more questions. I love answering these questions. I've made so many mistakes traveling and I get to see literally tens of millions and if not billions of bits of information about airfare each day, and I'm still learning each day. So let me do that on your behalf so you don't have to.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Ann.